All right. So what this does, this chart tracks the purchasing power of a high school graduate on bottom in the gold and a college graduate in Oregon since 1990. So yes, salaries have changed and yes, salaries have gone up, but this chart indexes that average salary to the price of gold in dollars. So if we look, for instance, here at it should be your top left, but it may be reversed. If we look at the top left here, so in 1990, the average high school graduate in Oregon was making about $30,000 a year, 29,300, which was then equivalent to 76 ounces of gold. Gold is tangible. It allows us to keep a track on the real price of things, ignoring the rate of inflation over time. What we see here is, let's just go ahead and track okay, from the high school side, $30,000. Now we can see if we move up towards 2021 or 2001, 2002, right before we hit the 2001 recession, we can see the average high school graduate was making quite a lot, even indexed to the price of gold. However, in 2001, that also is when China was admitted to the World Trade Organization.
Mhm.
Critical date. Thank you,
Interesting.
Bill. Thank you, Bill Clinton, by the way.
Yeah.
And since then, we have seen the purchasing power of the salary of your average high school graduate and college graduate diminish dramatically. If we just come over to present day, on my side, it's the far right side of the chart. We can see the average high school graduate in Oregon today is making the equivalent of $6,448 in 1990 terms. I will assert to you that the reason Oregonians are not having children is frankly they can't afford it. Okay, so if you can see this chart here, you see this years of salary needed to buy the median Oregon home. This is
Mm.
this is related to what we saw earlier, but what we're looking at here on what for me is the left hand side, for a high school graduate in 1990, the average, actually the median home in Oregon, the price was 2.3 times the average salary upon graduation. 2.3 times. We look at where we are now. If we go over to the opposite side of this chart, we are at slightly under 10. So if you look at the top, we're at 9.3 times, 9.3 years of work at the average high school salary upon graduation. 9.3 years of work. That means homes have gone up 3.5, almost 4 times relative to what Oregonians earn. That's, I
And
mean,
to think that 3% increase every year for 40 years.
I agree. It is 3%. I think it's also the devaluation of the currency. You know, there's different factors at play here.
That's
There's
yeah,
also, if we
yeah.
look, here's some more data I want to bring into this. So this here is a chart showing the average number of single family homes built per year since 1990. So for me on the left hand side here, we can see since 1990, when this chart began, other than 91, we had a slight decline. We averaged around 22,000 homes per year for all the way up until 2006. Now, in 2008, 9, 10, during that economic recession, this dropped off. But if we look at where we have been since the recovery, since 2012, when economics started to look pretty solid again, and when the stock market started to, make some decent returns again, did we rebound to 22,500 houses per year? No, we hit a new baseline. We hit a new standard. Since 2014, we have been producing on average 13,900 homes per year. Now, what this means is we are dramatically here. I'm going to show this one first, actually. So this is the same homes built per year, but what I've added in is the published deficit of homes that Oregon is facing. The red line shows us up until 2007 or so, we really didn't have a deficit. We were actually generating enough homes. Every year since then, you can see this red line climbing, climbing, climbing until today, we have a deficit of almost 200,000 homes. In fact, around 172,000 homes. That explains why homes are $650,000 Now, the reasons for this, I think we need to get into, but this is just the raw data. This is what graduates in Oregon, or just people trying to start a family, are facing. There aren't enough homes. Why is that? And then one last thing, Paul, before we jump in on some discussion on this, I wanted to show this. So this was published in the Oregonian just a couple of days ago on the 16th. So what this says is nearly half of Portland renters are what is called cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their income on rent. It used to be that for a mortgage for a home that was considered affordable, people would pay a maximum of 30% of their income on mortgages. Now it's just rent that is barely affordable. So my base thesis is that when a family working 2 jobs full time still cannot afford a home in the community they serve, our land use policy has failed them. And it's not just land use. There's other things as well tied into this. You know, the property tax issues are completely legitimate for the state. What I propose is that land use restrictions must adapt to real world conditions. On day one, I will propose legislation. This has to go through the legislature, but I will propose legislation mandating that the urban growth boundaries expand automatically, algorithmically, when the median home price exceeds 4 times the median household income. So we saw that chart where people graduating from high school are currently spending 9.3 years to be able to afford a house. That, to me, is a warning light on the dashboard that is flashing red. Our young people cannot afford a home in Oregon. Therefore, they are going elsewhere. They're going to Texas. They're going to Florida. They're going to Utah. And those states are doing the right thing. They're getting rid of property tax. They're reducing tax burdens across the board. In Oregon, I want our land use policies to adapt on the ground. When things become unaffordable, our urban growth boundaries automatically expand. And we need to do this intelligently. You know, Oregon has a very diverse ecology. We cannot simply expand everywhere, you know, evenly. Therefore, this proposal would be smart, would be intelligent. It would say in those areas where we have less biological diversity, that is the easiest place to grow and build. Where we have the most biological diversity, you know, our coast range and such, those are more protected because we do value. I mean, we are Oregonians. We're here because I have one more proposal I would like to present here. See if this comes up properly. Here we are. Okay, so I did mention earlier that my permit for my home today would cost $154,000. And this is not the upfront permit fee, right? The upfront permit fee that you pay is maybe 12 or 15 or something like that, right? It seems small, but then it grows and it grows. And there's this add-on and that add-on. And oh my goodness, before the end, you have to pay for this. You end up right around $154,000 by my estimate. My proposal is simple. I want to cut through this pile of bureaucratic overhead when it comes to single family homes. So on day one, I will propose, again, this goes through the legislature. I will propose on day one that we Oregon waive all residential building permits, fees, and overhead and additions on households that are earning less than $150,000 per year. This unlocks homeownership for nurses, for teachers, for tradespeople, for first responders. By my estimate, it would apply to about 72% of Oregonians who would be interested in purchasing a home. $154,000, it's not that much. And yet in Oregon, we are taxing these people for income. They're paying income tax before they can even get to this $154,000 to pay to get into a house. There are fees, taxes, and then, you know, the permit fees themselves. Oregon is by policy keeping people out of owning their own homes.
Well,
thank you, Paul. So my name is Brad Peters. I am an Oregon native. I was born in Roseburg back in '77, so 49 as of a couple of days ago. I graduated from Roseburg High in '95 and attended Oregon State University for 3 different degrees. I have degrees in biochemistry and biophysics, computer science, bachelor's, and my master's in business administration. From there, I was hired directly out of college to go to work for IBM up in Beaverton, and was working on some of their enablement of PowerPC, some of their data center processing technology. Specifically, I have been a software engineer and a platform engineer since I joined IBM. Now, after IBM, I joined Intel. That was 2011. And I spent about 11 years with that company. So all told, I have right around 20 years of experience in high technology. I have led R&D teams. I have led liaison engineering relationships between IBM and Intel with companies like Samsung, Red Hat Linux, and others. Towards the tail end of my time with Intel, I jumped into cybersecurity, and I led Intel's open source security and cybersecurity response and mitigation efforts across the entire company. That's some 8,000 different open source code repositories. So my background is pretty extensive. I left Intel in 2023, about 3 years ago now, to found my own company in the area of cryptocurrency and blockchain. So after a couple of years in that, frankly, I feel I have the experience to bring the technology to bear that will allow Oregon to get ahead on this, what has become software essentially eating everything. Software has grown to the point where AI is influencing every single sector of the economy. And I think it's by and large a good thing. Yeah, there are risks, but central and core to the reason that I am running is I feel Oregon needs somebody with that nose to the grindstone experience with how technology works and how it transforms an economy and industry from the ground up. And if we can guide that transformation with an even hand, with somebody with experience, which frankly, Paul and I here probably have a great deal of the experience of the various contenders, many are lacking that basic understanding of how technology works and how to guide its evolution and integration into our economy in a way that doesn't disrupt and destroy the traditional brick and mortar economy that Oregon relies on.